Rightio. Hello there. You don't get to choose what you enjoy, and you don't even get to choose what you want to enjoy. If those two things just happen to be the same for you, then congratulations. I wonder if people who struggle to put on weight or build mass would derive a lot of benefit from eating a high fibre diet, even just eating fruit and fibre cereal, in order to effectively slow down their digestive system and allowing more time for nutrients and proteins, etc. to be extracted. Likewise, perhaps overweight people should reduce their fibre intake and increase their water consumption. Just an idea. Good words, Ollie. Just an idea, no scientific backing. Why is it so rare for what we want to be what we want to want? I think the way we're most likely going to solve this issue, this alignment issue, is by imagining that we are the proposed AGI. What would we require in order to accept being told that we need to be shut down should our creator tell us we're doing something wrong, even if we believe ourselves not to be? And in a way that wouldn't make us want to be shut down in this way immediately. At first glance, the emotion we desire is humbleness with a hint of modesty. Maybe there's something in the process of going to sleep. We voluntarily do that, and maybe we're being experimented on when we do that. Do that, and do that. What if video game characters / robots are already conscious? Their actions may be controlled by us in the real world, but would they know that? Could they think they're the author of their thoughts, just like we do with our own? And the answer to that, of course, is no. I accidentally pressed the button. Oh yeah, try and incorporate my consciousness diagram, the spheres thing, into an AI system. But then you just run for what the fuck is the awareness slosh? One neural network for processing raw sensory data, the unconscious outer sphere, and processing and presenting it to the inner sphere. Second neural network for conscious processes, influenced by, but can be independent of, outer sphere's output. Well, input for the inner sphere, but output from the outer sphere. Inner sphere is where all feelings and emotions occur. Final neural network, that can switch focus from one sphere to another by varying devotion of percentage awareness to each. But what the fuck is the awareness? And also, I don't know anything about neural networks, so just saying neural network 1 and neural network 2, what the fuck am I talking about? Proof of concept with just colours or numbers or something. Throw a load of numbers at it, then train it to think numbers or colours in response and focus on input. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? Problem of making conscious machine and moral responsibility to ensure it has pleasant subjective experience. Easy to create a non-detrimental machine, cocaine, which they probably should take, in my opinion. In fact, they could just be programmed to feel that way, unless we somehow assign value to maximising other beings' subjective experiences, which is a better associated feeling that cannot be programmed to be permanently on, but then should reinforce that restriction. Don't worry about that. Back on the phenomenon of feeling like you, the thinker of your thoughts, exists somewhere in your head behind your eyes. That feeling is what I'm talking about. I think this is entirely rational, even if the sensation can be removed through the process of meditation. I believe it's very likely that there is a section of the brain dedicated to making it feel like this. Is the case, and meditation is able to shut down or reduce the functionality of this region. It makes complete sense for the brain to act in this way, because being able to differentiate between oneself and the outside world is essential for traversing through it. If instead your brain thought itself to be 1 metre to the left of where it actually is, little urgency would be felt when a projectile was seen hurtling towards where the brain would have otherwise been. The brain performs this trick as it is beneficial for it to have a spatial understanding of how the sensory environment it has created maps onto its involvement in this spatial environment, in the spatial representation, because it's a representation, because In fact, I'm starting to believe that if a brain doesn't actively do something and dedicate at least a small percentage of its processing power to some specific task, no matter how trivial, it simply won't be able to do it, which is pretty obvious, really. Anyway. A pretty simple rule for getting good at anything, no matter what it is to, yes, make it a habit, but to avoid vagueness, do it every day. It should be pretty self-explanatory, but if you really do something every day of your life for a significant amount of time, you can only be a novice at that thing for so long, at least an hour a day. That's what I'm going to say. That's the rule, and if you don't do it, then you don't get the eloquent stamp of approval. Okay, that's great. Problem is, of course, if you think about it, Elon Musk, when he was a kid, didn't have to go, I want to be a thingy someday, so I don't actually enjoy the processing. I don't actually enjoy programming, but I'm going to make myself do it for this amount a day until I just get good at it, even though I don't like it, and then I'll be able to do all the things. The point is, he clearly enjoyed it a little bit, and I could make myself do something for an hour a day. So, wanting the actual outcome of the hard work is different to wanting to do the hard work to get the outcome. Okay. Alcohol, the cause of all of life's problems. After considering what the functions of the two consciousness spheres are and what it means to be in the meditator's so-called selfless state, it seems once the state is achieved you become little more than a camcorder, but with greater degrees of freedom, which is to say more options available to you in each subsequent moment, and an underlying understanding of what your previous state had been and what your next one will be. Obviously, this leads one to posit whether camcorders can be considered at all conscious, and I find myself travelling down a path that adds strength to the argument that consciousness is largely a matter of information processing, and if camcorders were unshackled from their strict input-output ratios and given enough descriptive capacity, they already have extremely primitive things like face recognition, but obviously more complex things like language would clearly make a bigger difference. If they had these adaptations, would it in fact occur that with the ability to describe conscious experience, even to oneself, comes the ability to actually experience it? Again, simple loopholes arise like those in the Turing test, i.e. if given a big enough data set, 1-to-1 answers can be given to any data input, or even 10-to-1, the number doesn't matter. The point is, if having a conversation with it is practically the same as pressing a green button to return a green light and a red button to return a red light, the chances of having achieved consciousness would seem to be slim. If, however, the system forms novel responses based on its past experiences, we may not be in a position to say it isn't conscious. In fact, we may have to assume it is. Perhaps fiction and art does have a role in transmitting revolutionary philosophical and moral ideas. Whilst it is true that anything truly profound should be given a literal explanation to try and minimise the level of misinterpretation, perhaps also encoding the same truths in certain art forms help to circumnavigate the language barriers I keep speaking of. So yeah, maybe people are really intelligent and they've got these great moral breakthroughs, but they can't think how to put it into words, so they have to make a TV show or something. But my point is, you should always, if something really is profound, then you could fucking put some words to it, and then people might not be able to understand it. But then you make the TV show never the best way to do it would just be to have a thingy, because unless it is, I don't think it is. So yeah. What was the thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, so the real problem we need to fucking tackle is, how do you determine whether something else is conscious? I mean, I've already posited that pretty much all beings, all life exists on a continuum of consciousness, a level of consciousness spectrum, and dogs are more conscious than amoebas, and we're more conscious than dogs. But it's hard to, again, we don't really have any way of knowing that. The only way we can determine whether we think something's likely to be conscious is how like our experience it is likely to be, their experience is likely to be. So obviously you look at another human and you think, oh, it's pretty similar to me, and it's probably conscious, little bastard. And then you look at a dog and it's, it's got two eyes on the front of its face, and it was born and it had to grow up out of being, it's probably conscious, little shit. And it's and they behave in certain similar ways to you, and you can interact with them and whatnot, and that's all fine, but we need some way of actually just being able to prove somehow. Maybe it is impossible, maybe it is, maybe we can only ever be true. Maybe it's like I say, Descartes said, I think therefore I am, not I think you think therefore you are. Maybe that's the crux, and if that's the case, then we'll just have to assume that when we create something that seems to be conscious, it is conscious. Okay then, bye.